The 2024 season is almost here for the Texans. They started on the road against Indianapolis. Ooh, the Colts, that's a fun one to get the season going. What are the strengths of this Texans team as they head into 2024? What makes you do your best Hulk Hogan and get the posing together when you think about the Houston Texans? Well, for me, it's simple. There's three things that they are just fantastic at: the strength, the backbone of this team. Let's start with the defensive end duo. These two are absolute freaks. Will Anderson was one of the most impressive and consistent rookies in football last year. And oh, by the way, he was one of the most impressive and consistent defensive ends in football last year, near the top in pass rush win rate, ESPN stat that accounts for how successful you are at getting after quarterbacks. Near the top in run stop win rate, okay? Tackles for a loss, slowing things down, pushing things away from him so that other players can make the play for the Texans defense. Anderson was fantastic. He's the defensive rookie of the year last year, and he's going to build on it this year. Added muscle this offseason, maintained his speed. And yeah, I'm a little concerned that he hasn't had much of a training camp and preseason because of a little ankle issue, but he's had plenty of time to get that ankle right. And some of the side work that he's been doing leading up to that first game has been super active. I'm so excited to watch Will Anderson here in his second season in the NFL. He was the top defensive player in last year's draft. Okay. And he would have been the top defensive player in this year's draft, too. A little bit of foresight from Nick Caserio to snag himself a really nice defensive end. There weren't a lot of great defensive ends changing teams this past year in free agency. The Texans actually got the best defensive end that changed teams in free agency, and that's Danielle Hunter. Hunter is fantastic in his own right. Those things we said about Will Anderson, consistency, I mean, it's there, but the productivity is off the charts for Danielle Hunter. 16 and a half sacks last season, the most tackles for a loss in the NFC, and tied for the NFL lead with Max Crosby. Hunter is really, really good, and he might be better for the Texans, okay? Matt Burke, the defensive coordinator for the Texans, just kind of slid it in there as a little comment about how Danielle Hunter might actually be better in this system than he previously was. And Danielle Hunter confirmed that. He was on board with it. He was pumped, excited to be in a system where he doesn't have to read and react. It's just go. Go get the running back with the football. Go get the quarterback. Okay, go out there and just create chaos from that end spot, and a rare smile from Danielle Hunter every time he talks about playing in this system and this style of defense. You would be hard-pressed to find a defensive end or pass rush duo better than Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. I'll listen to your arguments, but the potential for these two, I mean, it is through the roof. There's some other defensive lines in totality when you factor in, tackles and ends. I mean, I mentioned Max Crosby. He added his buddy Christian Wilkins to the equation this past offseason. That's a pretty good duo, but that's a tackle and an end. There's not a better pass rush duo in 2024 than Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson for me. They are fantastic. I'm very excited to see what they can put together, and they are number 3 on the strengths for the Houston Texans. A quick second here from my friends at Prize Picks. Use the code Stoots, STOOTS, to get that bonus $50 when you play your first 5 at the link in the description down below. Prize Picks, the easiest and best way to play daily fantasy. They've got season-long fantasy as well. Let's put a season-long entry together at the end of this video. So stick around. Use the code Stoots, STOOTS, at the link in the description down below to get that great bonus offer. Play your first 5, get 50, okay? And then we'll put together a season-long entry that we can all have some fun with at the end of this video. So hang around. Let's get after it with the best and easiest way to do daily fantasy. That's Prize Picks. Number 2 on this list is the quarterback. It's CJ Stroud. And I know many people probably expected Stroud to be number 1 on this list, but number 2 is a solid place to be. Stroud was one of the most impressive rookie quarterbacks ever last year. He was awesome. It took him a minute to get comfortable and really dial it in, but man, there was so much to like from his rookie season, and building on that in 2024, it's going to be tough to stop the Texans because of what CJ Stroud can put together. He makes the floor of this team so incredibly high. And of course, he is going to be the reason that you can take the top off of the potential and where this team can go. Look, I feel like we're all looking for an AFC championship game birth from this team. Stroud has the ability to take the Texans to that level. Last year, the confidence, the playmaking ability that he played with, you don't see that from rookies very often. I'm really excited for him to take some of that this year and use it when necessary from some of that playmaking ability. You see a lot of times quarterbacks can really dominate people when everything's running on time, operating within the system. Last year, Stroud, with the changes along the offensive line, there was a lot of buy time, roll out, try to make something happen, and it led to a little inefficiency in his game. His completion percentage among the lowest of the top passers in the league last year. But just imagine this. If CJ Stroud's more efficient than he was last year, oh boy, it's going to be tough to stop the Texans offense. And he has every ability to be more efficient. The offensive line should be better. It's a little bit of a worry, but I'm not as worried about them pass blocking as I am about them run blocking. So they should pass block really well. And Stroud, he showcased it in the preseason and in training camp, his ability to manipulate and move around in the pocket. There were so many times last year that he got rid of a good pocket to try to go make something happen. This year, I don't believe he's going to do that. He's going to stay within himself and within the offense and make some really spectacular plays look easy, combining the talent that he has at wide receiver, tight end, and Joe Mixon's ability to catch the ball out of the backfield with an offensive line that's playing better and a little bit deeper into Bobby Slowick's mad scientist mind for this offense. The possibilities are really, really impressive when you start to let your mind wander about what CJ Stroud can do. He's not the best quarterback in football. Okay. Patrick Mahomes is still better. Maybe some people would tell you Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, but he's very, very good. And you could even go as far as to say, if you wanted to make him one of the strengths of this team, he'd be 1B to what ultimately is 1A for this Texans team. But CJ Stroud, he's a bigger muscle than what I got. He's a big flex. Okay. He's like a Mr. Universe flex when you start thinking about what the Texans' strength is. Quarterback checking in at number 2. So if you haven't figured out what number 1 is yet, I guess I can reveal it to you now. It's the wide receivers. I mean, come on. These top 3 wide receivers, Hank Dell, Nico Collins, and Stefon Diggs added this past offseason. There is not a 3 wide receiver crew in all of football that gets anywhere close to these 3. You want to have an argument about 2 versus 2 on some various teams, I'd be happy to have that argument. And you could make some sound arguments for other players like, say, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, maybe A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, picking and choosing who the Texans' 2 wide receivers would be in that represented argument. But when you add it in for the 3rd wide receiver and you start talking about the top 3, oh, baby, nobody's catching the Texans. Their top 3 beats everybody when it comes to wide receiver, and I trust their depth. I don't trust their depth as much as I would have if, say, a healthy Noah Brown was the 4th wide receiver for this team. The Texans ultimately decided to go with a little bit of a youth movement, keeping Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie. The veteran they did keep is Robert Woods, who's more consistent and been more productive in his career than Noah Brown, and even Steven Sims added in there as the wide receiver. But it's not really about the depth that makes this a super strength. It's about Stefon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. Diggs is here probably for just the 1 year, but he looks every bit the dynamic big-time receiver that he was in Buffalo. The Texans are going to use him in the slot sometimes, putting him against some inferior defenders and allowing him to really get going and annihilate opposing defenses. Nico Collins, you saw the vision that Nick Caserio had when he drafted Nico Collins come to fruition last year with Collins' ability to be a big body receiver, to go up there and make tough catches down the sideline, but also operate and annihilate in the middle of the field. He runs some routes that big time wide receivers don't always like to run. And when he gets the ball in his hands, guys do not tackle him on that first touch. He was one of the top guys in yards after catch as well last year, and plenty of that coming after contact. And then what else can I say about what Tank Dell put together? He was on pace for 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns last year. Now imagine if Dell had finished the year with 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. We wouldn't be talking as glowingly about Puka Nacua as we would have, as we do now, if Tank Dell had been able to stay healthy. And I'm not so sure that Tank Dell isn't just a little bit faster physically, and knowing more of the playbook, being in tune with this offense, and of course, CJ Stroud. He and Stroud, very good friends on the field and off the field. Being in tune with Stroud, I'm not also sure that he's not playing faster than ever. He's going to be an absolute nightmare for teams to try to cover. You can't cover them all, and that's what makes the wide receiver situation for the Texans the top strength for this team and this organization heading in to 2024. So to recap, your defensive end duo of Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson check in at number 3. Number 7 is number 2, as CJ Stroud, heading into his sophomore season in the NFL, looks to improve on one of the best rookie seasons of all time. And then that dynamic trio, the three-headed monster at wide receiver, they check in at number 1. They're the full-on Hulk Hogan pose, rip the shirt, point, listen to the where's the crowd? I mean, that's the full-on flex. That's the strength of the team, that three-headed monster at wide receiver. What say you? What's the strength of the Texans? Do you agree with my list? Do you have something different? Let me know in the comment section down below of this video. On your way down to the comment section, throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And, of course, visit with our friends at Prize Picks. I told you we'd put a Prize Picks entry together. Well, here we go. After you get signed up with that promo code Stoots, you play your first 5, you get your $50 bonus. So this is what Prize Picks look like. That's NFL. That's week 1. We're going to put together the season-long one, so we're going to go over here. How about we put a couple of these Texans that we talked about? CJ Stroud, let's stay away from the passing yards for Stroud, because if they get ahead in a couple of games, Joe Mixon may take care of the business. What about Stefon Diggs here, as I spell it correctly? 5.5 receiving touchdowns. We're going to go more on that. It's been since 2016 since Stefon Diggs hasn't had 6 or more receiving touchdowns. What about Nico Collins? Well, of course, this number seems pretty low for 5.5 receiving touchdowns, but I also like 100-yard receiving games, 1,000-yard receiver. Let's stick with the touchdowns. Scoring is fun, and these numbers feel a little low. How about Tank Dell? Yeah, that one's a little low. Tank Dell had 5 touchdowns pretty early on in the season. What if we put Danielle Hunter in there? 10.5. Okay, so all we need is 11 sacks from Danielle Hunter. He had 16.5 last year. The Texans think he's going to be better. Okay. How about Will Anderson? 8.5 is all we need for Will Anderson. Okay, go ahead and put that one in there. So we've got Diggs, Collins, Dell, Hunter, and Anderson. 6 is the max, and we have to have a player that's not on the Houston Texans. Let's put Anthony Richardson in there. Let's root against the Colts all season long. 26.5 passing and rushing touchdowns for Anthony Richardson. 9.5 interceptions on the season for Richardson. Let's just go with less for the passing and rushing touchdowns. And let's put a 10 spot on this. We get this right. Look at the flex play. You don't even have to win all the pieces of the lineup to get it a winner. Man, Prize Pick, so easy and so much fun. And just like that, your lineup is in. It's that simple. Put it together. Ride with me and your fellow Texans fans as we root for points and root against the Colts and Anthony Richardson. Easy as that. So fun, so easy to put those Prize Pick entries together. That's the season-long one. We'll have a game day one for you next week. So make sure you get signed up. Check out that offer. Play your first 5. Get $50 in bonus. Use my code STOOTS, STOOTS. Link in the description down below. So don't miss out on that. Don't miss any of the great videos as we get you ready for week 1 right here on the YouTube channel. Appreciate everybody watching. The long off season is over. It's time to talk about the 2024 season. Plenty more ahead of that Colts matchup in Indianapolis for the Houston Texans. And we'll have it all here on the channel. Appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. And I cannot wait till we talk Texans again soon.